Okay, I want to start off by giving all praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rakah, Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who teacheth the Bible in 100% truth, and shalom to the hopeful elect of the 12 tribes of Israel, consisting of the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans in the land of the Americas, as well as the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners living amongst the other nations. Shalom to you. Okay, today looking back at prophecy, mainly Revelation chapter 13. And if you haven't heard over the last few days, I think it was, today's Wednesday, and I think it was last Thursday there was a general election in the UK to vote for a new Prime Minister. And the general election in the UK is usually every 5 years. So there was one in December 2019. And so the 5 years would have been up come December this year, 2024. But, because of the state of affairs or whatever it is, I don't really follow it. I don't follow the ins and outs. It's all a bunch of, propaganda and lies, and, one person claiming to be better than the other. You look at these particular parties, so on and so forth. So, we don't believe in that particular system. Those that believe on Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, we understand that is a system which our enemy uses, basically, if you like, a heathen, a nation, one of the other nations. At the minute you have the Edomites that are ruling, yet you have all the other nations of the earth that follow in suit into that system. So the Edomites push, for example, a democratic system, and then all the other nations around the earth are following with that democratic system. But if the Hebrew Israelites, once it comes to the kingdom of heaven, the democratic system, free speech, what's the other one, inclusivity, or whatever it is, these things are going to be banished into thin air. But if you're new to this Revelation chapter 13, like most chapters in the Bible, will tell you a whole lot. Now I'm not going to go into detail, but I just want to quickly skim over it for the sake of this lesson. So this is Revelation chapter 13, and verse 1 starts off by saying, and I stood up. This is John on the isle of Patmos, John the apostle, the revelator. It says here, and I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads, 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Now, this refers to the ancient Roman Empire. You can look in the book of Daniel, chapter 2, for example. You speak of you read of the statue, and also you can read of the 4 beasts. You go into the prophecies of Daniel, and you understand that the statue with 4 parts, or the 4 beasts, represent 4 different empires that are due to come upon this earth. And we've through the various lifetimes that we've lived on this planet, we've seen them come and go. We've seen them rise, we've seen them fall, and at the minute we're speaking on the last particular kingdom, and the last kingdom is known as the ancient Roman Empire. However, the scriptures, especially here in Revelation chapter 13, shows you how the Roman Empire comes in 2 particular parts. The statue, I believe it was the king who had the dream, and Daniel was to interpret it for him, Nebuchadnezzar. But anyway, if I'm wrong, apologies. But the statue in that particular dream, finished off with 2 legs of iron, and this was, representing the Roman Empire, which has 2 legs, 2 parts. And then, at the bottom of the statue, the toes were, iron mixed with clay. And obviously that creates instability within the bonding. And that represents So, for example, the ancient Roman Empire has two parts. The ancient part has come and gone. We're now living in the revised Roman Empire. And, at the current day, you can see there are problems within the alliances. For example, Brexit. England wanting to, which they have done, they've left the EU. They're still part of NATO, but they've left the EU. And that obviously coincides with the iron, mixed with clay and the 10 toes, so on and so forth. And then, so again, you're reading of in here, this is what John is speaking of in Revelation chapter 13. So you've got the ancient Roman Empire. As it says here, I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads, 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Now, like I said, I'm not going to go into great detail, but that represents the ancient Roman Empire, represents the alliances and allegiances that it had with other particular people around it at the time. And the 7 heads represents 7 governments or kingdoms ruled by the Edomites, and the 10 horns represent alliances. So you have 7 heads. You have Spain, France, Britain, Greece, the Romans, Germania Major and Germania Minor, and then obviously with the 10 crowns upon it says here, and upon his horns 10 crowns. And 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns. So the 10 horns, for example, today would represent the EU. Now, currently there are many more members than 10 within the EU system, but initially when it was created, I think it's going back 40 years, there were 10 nations involved at its origins. So you read in here of the ancient Roman Empire. You can go into, you can look into detail, look into more details about the ancient Roman Empire and try and link it up. But when we jump down to verse 11, 13 and 11, it says, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. So now this beast is pretty much back. The Apostle John was seeing these visions. He saw a beast coming up out of the sea, then he saw a beast coming up out of the earth. Both these beasts represent the ancient and the revised Roman Empire. So you live in today, you have this worldwide system with the EU, with NATO, and like I say, EU started off, for example, with the 10 horns, with the 10 crowns, the 10 horns, and that started off with the 10 EU nations. Today it's grown, it's developed, and when you go to Revelation chapter 17 and 18, it speaks of the whore, and this is the whore that rides this beast, and this whore is known as America. So together, understanding that, you can see the worldwide geopolitical system. You have America manipulating the beast system being EU and NATO. And obviously that is how, things, pretty much the geopolitical system is controlled around the world through that. And then, verse 11 here says, behold another beast coming up out of the earth. Now we're seeing the revised Roman Empire. And he had 2 horns like a lamb and spake as a dragon. Now this represents the democratic system. Now again, this is something that existed in the ancient Roman Empire, and it's something that they use to rule today in this revised Roman Empire. And it says, verse 12, Revelation 13 and 12, and he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and he causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. So that, deadly wound being healed, that was the falling away of the ancient Roman Empire. And in the last 500 years, starting roughly 500 years ago, you had a time called Renaissance. Renaissance language, Renaissance art, and so on and so forth. And these Edomites pretty much came back into power, took over the world, set themselves up back into power to create the revised Roman Empire, the second part 2. And with that, they've used the democratic system as well as other philosophies. We live in a society that picks philosophies and customs from many ancient traditions and peoples and empires. There are philosophies in this kingdom which relate back to, for example, the Greek Empire or the Babylonian Empire. But what we're actually living in is the revised Roman Empire, and that's why having that democratic system is a big thing. That's the system of rule. It says here, and he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, so that includes the democratic system and other things that go with it. And he causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast. Now, when it says worship the first beast, you get this image in your mind that, if I'm worshipping the beast, I must, that must mean I get on my knees and I pray, and I don't do that. So I'm not worshipping the first beast. To worship something, you have to. You can't say that you worship something without obeying it. If you worship a sports star or a music star, when you get in the presence of that star, that star can take advantage of you because you worship the person, and that star knows you will obey them. And that's how you get a lot of women, or whoever youngsters, they get caught up in these situations, scenarios. Sometimes they put themselves there. Sometimes they're wicked within themselves and they put themselves in these situations. They cry wolf. But when you worship, even just worshiping a personality, a celebrity, automatically you're going to obey. You worship a god, you're going to obey whatever rules and regulations are applied, that go with the name of that god that you are speaking of. So if you worship your woman, you will obey everything she tells you. You can't go out on Friday night, you can't do this, you can't see the boys, you can't do that, you can't, no spending money on that. If you worship your woman, you will end up obeying everything she says. If you don't worship her, then you can love a person without worshiping them. When you sort of look at the family structure that's presented within the scriptures, everything's about obviously worshipping the Most High, through Yahushai. So we have to worship Yahushai. We have to obey what Yahushai tells us in order to connect to Yahweh. And then you have the family structure under that. You have the man of the house, and then the wife is supposed to obey. Worship. Well, no one's asking you to get on your knees and pray 3 times a day, but just listen to obey. That's why the man's in charge. Why are you in charge of your children? Your children aren't there worshipping you. They're not, but they look to you in that way. You're the mum, you're the dad. You have all the answers. The whole world evolves around you. What you say goes. You have the power to structure and form their minds and send them into certain directions within life. And so you use that obedience to do that. That's if they have obedience to you. And if you let them run wild, then they're not going to have it. So the word worship coincides with the word obey. You can't say that I worship but I don't obey. It doesn't make sense. You can't say I obey but I don't worship. Well, if you're obeying, then you worship this thing. You obey. We don't want to. Okay, maybe we don't want to, but we have to obey to this system. We have to pay tax. I don't vote. I don't go out and vote, and that's me being rebellious towards the system to a certain degree. I said, well, I'm not going to vote. This is not part of me. It's not my kingdom. You guys decide who you're going to have in power. And the answer is really, what's written right in front of us. Revelation 13:11. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. EU and NATO. with America riding it, that whore. It says, and he had 2 horns like a lamb. So the 2 horns on this beast are lamb-like. And when something is, when you see a lamb is super friendly, super unharmful, and that's what a lamb represents. And then in this particular situation, but then he goes on to say, he spake as a dragon. So speaking as a dragon, we'll look up the word here. You've got this one beast, but it's got 2 horns. And the 2 horns represent the democratic system, the 2-party political democratic system. And when you look at these parties that are asking for your vote, they present everything in a super friendly way, in a super helpful way, in that everything they're there to do is to do for your benefit. So they want your vote. So this beast has 2 horns, and that seems super friendly. But it says here, but they spake as a dragon. And speaking as a dragon or drakon is not lamb-like. Now look in here, we have the word drakon, and this pretty much translates to dragon. Okay, so he spoke as a dragon. Now, you can take that, literally if you like, but we always tell you have to look into the words and the deeper meanings of them. Looking at this web page here, this is, like I say, just to describe tiptopwriter.wordpress. This is the linguistic connection between a dragon, draconian law, and a constellation. And it says, no, it's not all Greek to me. The Greek word drakon means snake or monster, as we just read, dragon, in the blue letter. It goes on to say, and hence entered many Western languages such as dragon, English and French. It says drash in German, dragon in Spanish, and drago, Portuguese. Dragon, Italian, and drac, Dutch. It says it also inspired names of fictional characters such as Dracula and Draco Malfoy. But Drakon or Draco was also a Greek legislator who was notorious for his severe laws. He lived in the 7th century BCE. He wrote laws that allowed liberal use of the death penalty, even for minor offences. Due to its harshness, it became known as draconian, which is used nowadays to refer to similarly unforgiving rules or laws. And for the stargazers among you, Draco is also a constellation in the far northern sky. So, that's all we really need. And, you go to the blue letter, it gives you the word drakon. But now that you understand, drakon was a legislator. And, he was known for being draconian. I'm going back to Revelation 13 and 11. So we're speaking of the revised Roman Empire, the part that we're living in now. It says, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb. So it seems friendly. There's one particular beast. It has 2 horns, and so you can choose from one of these 2 horns that represents the political party system. They come across as lambs, so they seem unharmful. But it says here, and he spake as a dragon, so they speak draconian. When we head towards the introduction of the MOTB, and you jump down to verse 13, it says, it causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark. The word mark there goes back to the word charagma, an incision in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, say he had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. So this is speaking of the MOTB. This is something that we're warning you of. This is the next major prophecy that's due to take place. And once that prophecy does take place, we'll pretty much be on at World War III and at the doorstep of the return of Yahweh Shai. So it's all coming down to this particular point where everything's becoming very tight, and we believe very soon, Lord willing, within the next year, something is due to take place. Now, going back to what I said, we've just had the general election. What's happening at the minute worldwide. This is list of elections in 2024. It says this is a list of elections that are set to be held in 2024. The National Democratic Institute also maintains a calendar of elections around the world. It says here the year 2024 is notable for a large number of elections being held worldwide. At least 97 countries, home to nearly half of the global population, will vote, including 8 of the world's 10 most populous nations: Bangladesh, Brazil, India, Indonesia, Mexico, Pakistan, Russia, United States. In addition, the European Union held elections for the European Parliament in June. Around 2 billion voters, approximately a quarter of the world's population, are eligible to vote in elections this year. So that's a lot of people voting this year. And that's a lot of change. That's a lot of new leaders coming in. You can... Where is it? You look here. So, they give you, like, for example, they give you continent blow by blow. They tell you, for example, what types. Canada 2024 general election, British Columbia general election, New Brunswick general election, summer regional elections in Chile 2024, 27th of October, that's a regional election. But then you have municipal elections. So you can go through the list. It says there 97 countries worldwide, 2 billion voters in 2024 alone. Now, when you look at, you can look at lists of elections in 2023. I didn't quite give you a number, but I looked at it before. As you can see, it's not so much. But 2025, there's again more elections taking place. So, 2023, 24, 25. There's a hell of a lot of elections taking place. There's a hell of a lot of change. New leaders coming in. New legislations, new rules, and a new direction. And then you have to understand, or ask yourself, which direction is it that we're going in? Well, all you have to do is look up the Great Reset. This is on Wikipedia, so it's not hard to find, what I've just pulled up so far. And you look at them, and then you can see that we're in the middle of a time of change. Like I said, the UK general election comes every 5 years, so we should have had one in December. There was one in December 2019. There should have been one in December 2024. They called it early because of the poor state of affairs, and now the government that's just taken over, the new government, the Labour government, Keir Starmer, he's now due to be in power until 2029, the summer of 2029. So, next year, within 6 months, we're going to be in 2025. And, we're hitting halfway between 2020 and 2030. And the government that's coming into power within the UK, for example, even in America, at the end of the year, you're going to have a new government take place, or providing Biden gets voted out, which it looks like likely it will, and then we could have a new direction of change. 2024, 25, 26, and 27. I think it's every 4 years they do an election out there in America. So what would that take in 25, 26, 27, 28, sorry. So then we wouldn't have a new president in America until 29. So now we're starting to get the leaders that are starting to step in, which are going to carry us through towards the end of the Great Reset. You've just seen a whole bunch get us through the first part, the first 5 years, and now there's a worldwide changeover. 2023, 24, 25, we can see mass change. 2024 alone, 2 billion people, a quarter of the world's population, are voting. And when they say eligible to vote, obviously that's just counting the people that they've got on records. So I don't know, who knows? Esau makes up these numbers. But you look up the Great Reset here, it says here the Great Reset Initiative is an economic recovery plan. Okay, so there's something's happened, and an economic recovery plan was needed apparently, so we're reading about it now. Drawn up by the World Economic Forum, WEF. Have to be careful with my words actually. So in response to this blue word in here, which is what took place in 2020 and 2021. So this is a recovery plan drawn up for the whatever happened in 2020 and 2021. Whether you think whatever happened was coincidence or a pre-planned event by the powers that be, it's funny how a lot of people do think it's a pre-planned event, and now all of a sudden a reset plan, a recovery plan has been born out of it. It says the project was launched in June 2020, and a video featuring the then Prince of Wales Charles was released to mark its launch. The initiative's stated aim is to facilitate rebuilding from the crisis in 2020 and 2021 in a way that prioritizes sustainable development. Okay, so now you can see we're in the middle of this process. They hit you with the whatever, the okie doke in 2020 and 21, and now they've held their hands up. Oh my gosh, there's a big problem, we need to solve it. Don't worry, we have a recovery plan. And the recovery plan is almost halfway through 2025, within 6 months. And we go back to Revelation chapter 13. What does it say? It says that the beast has 2 horns like a lamb, but spake as a dragon. So this goes back to the party political system. How this change, this recovery plan that you're reading of here, the Great Reset, is presented to you through your prime ministers, your presidents, through the democratic system. It is presented to you through the 2 horns like a lamb, but it's connected to the same beast, and eventually it's going to start speaking draconian. We're halfway through this plan. We've had the first half. What do you think is going to start happening in the second half? If you believe in the scriptures, then you can see where this is going. It goes, I'm not going to read. I don't really want to read this because I don't really want to trick myself up and say something that I shouldn't be saying. But you can see what's on the screen. You can just go to Wikipedia, Great Reset, or List of Elections 2024. You could even find your way over to the Sustainable Development.un.org, a webpage by the United Nations. And what are they telling you? They're telling you they're transforming our world. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Now, again, I'm not going to read all that. But this is showing you, what direction we're going into. So we understand where we are. We're halfway between, almost at halfway point in this particular phase. And we know it ends with a Great Reset, and there is a economic recovery plan. Now we've been warning you that this economic recovery plan goes back into Revelation chapter 13 when it speaks of the incision in the right hand or in the forehead, so that no man may buy or sell, say he had that particular incision in the skin. And we've explained that this is going back to that technology that goes under the skin. It goes back to a digital worldwide currency, the CBDC. And we can see these particular things developing around us within society. And this is the process. This is the recovery plan. Whether you like it or not, this is something that's already happened. This is 4 years ago. They actually, witnessed this event in 2020, and in June they said, don't worry, we've got an action plan, a recovery plan. They're putting it into motion. They're going to present it to you through the two horns that spake as a lamb. So your politicians, your prime ministers, your presidents, they're the ones that are going to bring you this particular change. Who else is going to bring it? Because the people of the world, they worship the beast system. Oh, they say, well, I don't get on my knees and I don't pray to them 3 times a day. Yes, but you obey what they tell you to do. So when they say to you, look, you can't buy or sell with cash anymore, you now need the device under the skin, or you're not a part of this worldwide economic recovery plan, you can't buy or sell, then what are you going to do? You're not going to eat, you're not going to have your clothes, you're not going to have no fuel in your car, and you pretty much then have to cease to exist. So now you start to think, well, this sounds draconian. Well, this just takes you back to Revelation chapter 13, and he spake as a dragon. So you have to start looking at these leaders and start looking at what they're doing. There's a lot of leaders that are coming in right now, all around the world. New leaders are coming in with their new ideas. Directions are changing, policies are changing, and you're going to start to see things become very draconian. Now, one example is what we're seeing in the UK now. This, Keir Starmer, Keir Starmer, or should say Starmer, like Schmerner. Keir Starmer from Schmerner. He's the new United Kingdom Prime Minister. Sir Keir Rodney Starmer is a British politician and barrister serving as a Prime Minister in the United Kingdom since July 2024. Well, actually, since as of last Friday. Previously served as the leader of the opposition from 2020 to 2024. Starmer has been Member of Parliament for Holborn and St Pancras since 2015 and was Director of Public Prosecutions from 2008 to 2013. So he's probably helped a lot of Jakes away in his time. So this is the person that we're speaking of here. So this is the new person that they've voted in, supposedly, in through the two horns that spake as a lamb. The two horns like a lamb. This is the person that was voted into the system. People have, said, well, this is the best. The people complain about politicians all the time. They look at two particular politicians, Conservative and the Labour Party, and they say, well, they're both just as bad as each other. They still make a vote because they worship the system and they believe in the democratic system, and they believe that if they obey it, somewhere along the line it can work. Everybody's looking for a hero to become a politician and take over the country and fix the problems, but it never happens. And because ultimately these two parties work for the same beast system, and the job of the beast, or America the whore that rides the beast, what she's trying to do with it is ultimately oppress you. So we're in that time, we're halfway through that point, 2020 to 2030. Things are about to start moving real quickly. Now you see a lot of leaders coming into power, into play, and you've got to look at them and see what they're about and see what their agenda is. Now I've got 3 articles here, and I'm just going to read you the headlines, and it's going to pretty much paint the picture within itself. I've also got these 2 particular videos, and I'll leave the link for those in the description box. So we're looking at Starmer and we're looking at what he's about. Let's get rid of this. And this one, it says here, Blair urges Starmer to introduce ID cards and avoid vulnerability on wokeism. Okay, so before I move on, to understand more on Tony Blair, I've come here to migrationpolicy.org, the immigration legacy of Tony Blair. And I'm start off here. Migration has been a consistent feature of the policy and political landscape in the United Kingdom over the last decade. This is during Blair's tenure. You had pretty much Blair in power, throughout the 90s. Labour, you had Labour in power with different prime ministers up until 2010. With the problems that have been created and developed over that time, people became sick of it, and they had asked for a change of government. You then had the Conservatives from 2010 up until now, the last 14 years. They've tried to fix the problems, and where the problems have just got worse, immigration, NHS crisis, so on and so forth, inflation. And now that's why you're finding the voters swinging back to, what they say, if it's true, if the votes count, they're swinging back to Labour. And that's why it's gone back to Keir Starmer, who's Labour. But reading about the 10 years, it says migration has been a consistent feature of the policy and political landscape in the United Kingdom over the last decade of Blair's leadership, premiership, being Prime Minister. It says concerns have ranged from asylum seekers to unprecedented economic migration from Eastern Europe. The monthly MORI poll of the most important issues facing Britain has consistently recorded immigration among the public's top concerns. The most recent figures from April 2007 showed immigration to be the public's second most important issue behind crime. So what was happening when Blair left? He did 10 years, he left. And after that, even in 2007, there was already a problem. People were saying there's a problem with immigration. People are coming over from Eastern Europe just to work. They're taking the jobs. And you've got a lot of Eastern European people, especially on construction sites. I was into construction sites, from 07, 08, 09 up until 2012. And then it got to the point where the work's they're just flooding the market, so you just go into other areas. And so what this is showing is that the problem that's there now, you see, the vote for Brexit was a racist vote. It was a vote to leave EU. It was a very high turnout. And, when you ask the people, why did you vote? They said, well, we're sick of the immigration. It was basically a vote to stop immigration. People were told, if you vote for Brexit to leave the EU, then you stop all the immigrants coming in. And, people had no clue about anything else, about what was going on. They just voted for that. And that's what the people that were voting to stay, they were looking at the financial, economic reasons. That's the 10 toes spoken of by Daniel in the book of Daniel. So, part iron, part clay, struggling to stay together. And then obviously it's down to the problem. You see, the UK was part of EU since the 70s, and it's never been an issue. There's always been people coming over from the EU. England or London's been a multicultural society. But then, when Blair became in power, he was earning big. Big £350 million contracts were getting signed, and the money was getting siphoned into his pocket through these companies. And all of a sudden, it opened up the market to all these people coming across the border. And so the level of immigration increased rapidly up until now. And as you can see from here, the problem within, the public's perception was already there in 2007. And after Tony Blair left, they still had 10 years to deal with the immigration up until 2010. They still didn't solve it. People got fed up of it. Then they had a Conservative government from 2010 to now. They said, well, you lot solved the problem. You fixed the NHS and you solved the immigration process. They still weren't fixing it. Then Brexit came. Do you want to leave? Yes, leave, because we're fed up with these people. And it's still, since Brexit, the problem still hasn't been fixed. So now they've gone full circle back to Labour. And, so Tony, the Godfather, is giving that advice again to the new Labour leader, saying, you got to stick onto the ID cards. Okay, ID cards. And that's what happened. Tony Blair got, at the time, when all these people were coming in, he started calling for ID cards, and people were saying, well, you first of all, you're the one letting in the people. Secondly, ID card is outdated. There's digital system coming in. It's early 2000s. So he's back again, calling on Keir Starmer to say, ID cards for the problem, to solve the problem he created. Reading on here, it says, throughout this period, particularly from 2001, Labour put migration at the centre of his energetic legislative programme. In the 10-year period under Blair's stewardship, Labour passed 4 migration-related parliamentary acts or laws, and a 5th parliamentary bill, a draft law, is currently in the final stages of approval. So that was, obviously, this is written ages ago, so that's happened. This rate of law making surpasses that of every other social policy area. In addition, legislation has been supplemented by a number of major policy proposals and plans. Labour has also developed policy in often controversial directions, such as the decision to allow nationals of new EU members in Eastern Europe to work in the UK. See, so that's what was happening. He opened up the floodgates, and then he called for ID cards, and then they said, Tony, you've opened up the floodgates, and you're prehistoric calling for ID cards. So it's a digital system. We're going into the 2000s. The same problem has developed over the last 24 years. They gave Labour 10 more years to fix it. They didn't fix it. Now Conservative had 15 years, 14 years to fix it. The two horns. None of them could fix it, because ultimately this is a plan of the beast. The beast has another agenda to reset between 2020 and 2030 because of what happened, inverted commas, what happened in 2020 and 2021. So now they're introducing new leaders all around the world, and you've seen this one here, for example, in the UK. He's already getting the advice from the person who created this immigration problem in the UK, and this problem is all around the world. You're seeing this all around the world. People crossing borders, people complaining, and it's part of the plan, part of the agenda. Because when it all becomes a mess and it's just you can't work out who's who, and there's violence and crime and everything, that type of problem is reaching the high end of society into places like the UK, places like America, not just these other places. So now the problem is spread worldwide, and ultimately the way to solve that is to have an ID, so you know exactly who's who. So back to this article. In an early intervention, little more than 24 hours after the Prime Minister entered Downing Street, his predecessor had publicly offered advice on how to approach his time in office. So Tony, whose attempt to roll out ID cards while in power was killed off by the following coalition government, called for a new digital system to help with border control. They basically told him, you're old-fashioned, Tony. ID cards, you need a digital system. So writing in the Sunday Times, this Tony Blair, it says, he said, the only game changer is the full embrace of the potential of technology. He added, we need a plan to control immigration. If we don't have rules, we get prejudices. In office, I believe the best solution was a system of identity, so that we know precisely who has the right to be here. And doesn't that not sound like, no man may buy or sell, say he had the incision in the skin? Well, you can't, if you can't buy or sell and you can't buy food and fuel and pay for your bills, then you're not going to be here because you can't exist. So if a digital ID card, not a physical ID card, but a digital one was rolled out under the skin, which incorporates a digital economic, contact into the digital economic system, they will know precisely, who has the right to be here or not. Don't forget, we're in the middle of that great reset, the plan to recover the economy, since that, that mysterious event that all of a sudden took place in 2020, mysteriously out of nowhere, that came. So it says, with again technology, we should move as the world is moving to a digital ID. If not, new border controls will have to be highly effective. So basically what he's saying is, okay, yeah, I called for the ID card. Now we've got digital. We'll go for the digital IDs. And if you don't, then you've got to come up with some other highly effective solution. What other solution is there? This problem has been developing for 25 years and nobody's been able to fix it. The two horns, they both came and went. Nobody can fix it. We're back full circle. And the man who helped develop to create this problem, in a way, he was helping prophecy to come to pass. And he's now, so Tony, the godfather of the Labour Party, is offering him that advice, saying, well, this is what you need, that ID. And this is the new Labour leader, congratulated Sakir for the most remarkable turnaround in recent British electoral history after historic vote. But he also warned that underneath the sweeping electoral gains, that there were clear signs that many voters had been seeking to punish the Tories at the ballot box rather than just reward Labour. So they want answers. They want you to fix the problems that these lot have left them in. While Reform UK made inroads into the Conservative base, it poses a challenge for Labour too, the former Prime Minister said. So Tony suggested that cultural issues are at the heart of the challenge, and he added the government should avoid any vulnerability on wokeism. There is also clearly a challenge in part of the Muslim community, but that is a topic requiring its own special analysis. So I'm not going to go in deeper on that, but you can kind of see where this is all heading. So more about Labour and Keir Starmer. This government that's been introduced halfway through the Great Reset. The government that will pretty much carry you through to the end of the Great Reset. So, 5 years in power, that will take us to 2029. So another thing here, these articles were sent to me by someone, so I built the lesson from there. Another one is Labour to overrule councils to build data centres on the Greenbelt. And, I'm not going to go deep on this, but it pretty much comes down to councils around the UK wanting to keep areas green and, natural. And, they've got these things in place. But, Labour is basically coming to overrule them. And they're coming to overrule them because they want to build data centres. Now, you got your iPhone and you've got all your stuff stored. You're talking about you got this much gigs of data. You got this on your iCloud. So, where's all your pictures? Where's all your information stored? If you lose your phone, it's providing you've backed up your phone, you lose your phone. The insurance company give you a new one. You load it up. Bang, it brings your phone back to life or wherever you last backed it up. Where did that information come from? It came from the cloud. Now, this is Esau's smooth talk. We tell you that the clouds in the scriptures are referred to as chariots or so-called UFOs, angelic vehicles. And Esau in this case is referring to something as a cloud, but your information does not float up into the sky and get held in some white fluffy cloud and just, moving along out the way, nice and natural. No, all that information that you have has to get stored in a data center. And these are buildings made of brick and brick and mortar, timber roof, ceramic, whatever, roof tiles. These are buildings and they need electricity, a hell of a lot of electricity to run. And I know someone who runs data centers, and he talks about the amount of power and the size of the cables, the huge cables coming in, and then the cooling systems, because then they need cooling systems to keep all this technology cool. So, Esau's, talks to you about all these clouds, keeping your information in the cloud. Don't worry, we just store it in the cloud. The cloud is a building. And it's just sucking up the environment the same way any other of these other buildings or whatever Esau's got going on out here. And that's what they're looking to build. They want to just build data centres. They're looking to overrule the councils in the UK. This is one of their plans as they come in and they want to build data centers, buildings with just racks and racks and racks of servers with data, all that information just there. Hell of a lot of electricity, like thousands of volts coming in, and X amount of cooling system going on. So all this is a consumption on the environment, and it's also the reality of having your information stored in a cloud. You go on the internet, all the information is there, and what's that about? That's about having the information ready to look at. You're flicking through your phone and you just pull up a page. Where does the page come from? It's somewhere. The page exists somewhere. The internet makes you feel like it's something that just exists in thin air and it just appears and it disappears. But no, it's all the information is kept there. But it's all part of the plan. You have the Internet of Things. That is part of the fourth industrial revolution. It's part of the Great Reset. Using the new technology to move into a new industrial revolution. Sustainability. So even though they say it's like, for example, electric cars. They say, sustainability, take an electric car so you don't have to have a combustion engine. But then apparently the cost of producing a battery for an electric car is way higher than the cost of the combustion car to the environment. So things don't always make sense with the way Esau presents it to you, but the bottom line is they're pushing you into a particular direction. Last article, and I've also got 2 videos, the link for 2 videos that I'm going to leave. Hang on a sec. This shit. Yeah, so this is the last one. Sick of woke censorship. You ain't seen nothing yet. A Starmer Labour government will be a disaster for freedom of speech. So this is another thing that goes into the MOTB. You've got people out here, reading the scriptures, warning you of these prophecies due to come to pass. We're telling you what's going on. We're going into this new age. We're in the middle of the Great Reset. Everything is a pre-planned event. They've created the problems. Problem, reaction, solution. What's the other one? Order out of chaos. So they've created the chaos. Chaos is all around you, around the world. Immigration, inflation, war, all these problems. I mean, can the world be in any more problems? What other more problems can there be in the world? Children are getting jacked up. Women are getting jacked up off the street, kidnapped, whatever. Kids are in gangs. The list of drugs out there and people that are abusing on a daily basis, you can't even list them all. There's so many. I mean, there's all this stuff going on all around the world. People just worshipping any old idol that they want. On top of all that, all these false gods, and blowing themselves up in the name of these false gods. And the world's a mess. People want change, and all these changes are taking place all around the world. All these new governments are coming in, and you're seeing a clear direction that they're going in, and it's all in line with what the WEF are presenting to you between 2020 and 2030. Don't forget, like I keep saying, we're just about to hit the halfway mark. Things are about to get real draconian, and they're ushering in a new government. At the same time, people are fed up of these problems. What's the answer? And we have the answer. It's this digital technology, device under the skin, track and trace, immigration solved, crime solved, and a financial system, all incorporated into one thing. If you commit a crime, we just turn off your device. You can't buy or sell. So there'll be no point. And as soon as you steal one thing and you want to get away with it, then you have to keep stealing and keep stealing and keep stealing and keep stealing, because they will just turn your device off. So you then have to make the choice. Don't steal. Don't get the device turned off. And so now within that, you're worshipping the system because you're obeying it. It's sick of woke censorship. You ain't seen nothing yet. 4th of July 24. It certainly looks like Keir Starmer's Labour Party is on course for a large majority at the general election. This is the day before it happened. What will this mean for free speech? The Free Speech Union, which I founded in 2020, is a non-partisan organisation and will defend its members who get in trouble for exercising their right to free speech, regardless of their political views, provided they stay within the law. I'm worried that a Labour government will bring in new laws that will criminalise vast swaths of speech and that are currently legal. We anticipate fighting a number of test cases in which we challenge whether those laws are compatible with our existing laws, including the Human Rights Act. For instance, Labour has promised in its manifesto to bring its inclusive conversion, you have to be careful of these words, therapy ban, something that FSU has long been campaigning against. That therapy, commonly understood as a coercive attempt to change a person's orientation, is already against the law in Britain. So what does Labour want to ban exactly? The answer: in any deviation from the affirmative care approach to people confused about their, the FSU is concerned that if Labour passes this law, parents who challenge their children's belief or try to talk their children out of having it, dangerous medical procedures, could end up in jail. Basically, what he's trying to say is, if they get into power, which they are, they're likely to bring in laws which stop you trying to persuade your child out of swapping, transforming. Your 10-year-old says, I want to be a transformer. And you say, no, that's just dumb. You do that and you could end up in jail. That's basically what he's trying to say, where we're heading. So that's a law we think may be incompatible with the Article 8 of the European Convention of Human Rights, which protects the right of a family and private life, and Article 10, which protects the right of free speech. Another source of concern is Labour's proposed Race Equality Act. Announced earlier this year, the Act will further institutionalise critical race theory and attempt to voice diversity, equity and inclusion. Initiatives on the workplace, and we've seen at the FSU, if you challenge the ideology underpinning DIE initiatives by pointing out the UK is one of the least racist countries in the world, for instance, you can find yourself out of a job. We anticipate being involved in lots of employment tribunal cases involving people who've been fired for challenging work diversity training, for following diversity training. Basically, I'll say it like this. It's getting a bit confusing on that article. I'll say it like this. I'll leave the links for those articles in the description box, and I'm going to also leave the link for these 2 videos in the description box. And in the videos, they'll probably explain it to you a lot more simpler and clearer and quicker and better. On the left, you've got this person talking about Islam, for example. And so what they're saying is, this whole thing about curbing free speech, they're basically looking to say, you can't say this or that about Islam to stop Islamophobia. And so what people are saying in Britain is that, if I can't basically say I don't like something, then you're taking away my free speech. And so who else says what they don't like? We tell you what we don't like. We tell you what we don't like according to the scriptures, according to what the Most High don't like. For example, we explain to you that the end result of Sodom and Gomorrah and the 5 cities that were there. And we tell you that when the Most High, when Yahushua comes back in the day of the Lord, people acting in that way will be treated the same way as they were in ancient Sodom and Gomorrah. So ultimately, we're in line with these people. We tell you what we don't like, and that does not fall into line with inclusiveness. And so this person is arguing this point on the left-hand side, and he's pretty much arguing a point which which evolves around free speech. Free speech also evolves around us being able to say what we like. If they curb free speech, then the things we promote from the scriptures will automatically be banned from there. On the right hand side, it's got another one here. This is going into the free speech and the alphabet crew, and how he's going to protect this and protect that, so you can't say this and you can't say that, and he's going to do it using various online platforms. So for example, one of them, X, or formerly known as Twitter, I believe is one of them. They're looking to work with them to say, we're going to give you guidelines for you to follow, to curb people speaking against alphabet crews. We speak against alphabet crews, and it's all going back to that whole shutting down free speech. So he's protecting certain groups of people, inclusiveness, and so on and so forth. And by doing that, it's gonna narrow down the ability to have freedom to speech. So they're pushing things in the digital sense with the data, the data centers. They're looking to curb free speech, and you got the Godfather Tony, who's reminding him, the only way to fix the immigration process is through ID cards. Now that's what Tony Blair used to talk about, ID cards. Obviously the new thing is digital ID. You've got the WEF telling you that we're in the middle of a great reset, and now you've got all these new leaders coming in around the world. We're in the second half of this great reset, and things are about to get real draconian. So going back to Revelation chapter 13, we're in that time, and we're definitely in that time. You can't argue. This is, beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon, and he exerciseth the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship, obey the first beast. You obey the system. That means you worship in it. Whose deadly wound was healed. We obey the system because we have to, but we don't believe in it, and that's why we don't actually worship. And so you'd say, oh yeah, but you're paying taxes like me, so you must worship the beast. No, I don't worship the beast. I don't want to be part of the beast. I don't want to vote, and I want nothing to do with them. I just do what I have to because I'm in captivity. Being in captivity is like being in jail, and when they tell you in jail you can only have 1 hour a day in the yard, then you're only going to get 1 hour a day in the yard. You're only going to get what they give you. And we go to the enemy for the want of all things. However, these people out here, they believe in it, just like we believe in Yahweh Bahashim Hawashai. And so when we believe, we obey. They obey the system, and that in turn shows worship. Okay, so we're worshiping Yahweh Bahashim Hawashai. We believe and we obey. But these people don't believe in Yahweh Bahashim Hawashai, but they believe in the democratic system. They obey it. They believe in it. They see that as their future. To us, the future is to scrap democratic system. Initialize or start off the kingdom of heaven, however you want to say it. Bring that to pass, and we get that going, and we'll show you how to rule. There will be like a totalitarian rule. You will be one rule, and you won't be voting in or requesting for a change or trying to bring information out on leadership or expose. There'll be none of that in the kingdom of heaven. You'll just have a rulership. It will be righteous, and everybody will obey. And the spiritual power will see to that. But at the minute, obviously, we're living in this system, so we live under our enemy. We have to do what we're told. But we don't worship the system because we don't believe and obey in it. You've got kind of two parts that go towards it. But these people out here, they definitely worship it. They obey it. They believe it's their future. They believe, even our own people. They go to the voting booth. Then you catch them 2 days later. Did you vote? No, I didn't vote. You can tell by the way they respond. Of course you voted, because they believe it's their system. Even in America, you got Jakes, calling out for Trump, this, that, and the other. So they're totally gone. 4 years ago, they were calling for Biden, and now they're calling for Trump. The same people, and you're just going in circles. It's the two horns, like a lamb. But you're going to start to see them speaking as a dragon, because we're in the middle of the time of that great reset, and you're seeing these leaders coming in. They're changing, and you start to check, what they're going to bring with them, and you're going to see things start to change very quickly. Just jumping down to verse 16. Very soon we're going to see Revelation 13 and 16. He calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, which is basically everybody around the earth. It's a worldwide event. To receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead. So the word mark goes back to the word incision. Right hand is your power hand, your dominant hand. And your forehead is your metapon, into your thinking process. So it depends, which you can have it in your head, but more than likely to buy and sell, you're going to have it in your hand. And it says, and that no man might buy or sell, save he had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom, let him that have understanding count the number of the beast, for it's the number of a man, for his number is 666. So this beast system is going to issue this MOTB. And, I just spoke of worshipping the beast earlier on in the chapter, Revelation chapter 13. And when you jump into Revelation chapter 14, I think it's here, verse 9. It says, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of the Most High, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation in his righteous anger. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. So, this is talking about America, that lake of fire, and the destruction, World War III, that 1 hour in which nuclear ICBMs start to hit America and destroy it. And, going back to verse 9, it says here, and if any man worship the beast and his image, so we just spoke about worshipping, like I say, it's very hard to, people can debate. They can say, well, I vote, I pay taxes, I believe in the system, but so do you. And I can say, no, I don't. I do have to pay taxes, but I don't vote, I don't worship the system, and it becomes a debate. Well, this is a message here, you see. If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of the Most High. So now you have a question. It's all good us, saying, giving our opinions. Everybody wants to be a man of the Most High. Everybody says they've got the faith. I've got this, I've got that. Well, there's a time of temptation, a great time of testing. Spoken of in Revelation chapter 3. Yahushua pretty much says, I will keep thee from the hour of temptation, the time of great testing. That is the time when the MOTB gets made mandatory. That beast system is going to offer you this particular device to go under your skin, the charagmite mark, incision in your dominant hand, and then you will not be able to buy or sell without it. And now that's a pretty big choice to make. They move the whole system that we live under. Everything goes digital, and then including financial, your records, driver's license, all sorts. And then they say to you, look, if you don't take this particular device, then you can't be a part of the system. You also become an enemy to the system. The same way in 2020, 2021, they told you to take the jump shot. If you took it, then great. If you didn't take it, what were you? You were the enemy. It didn't matter, what color, what age, what sex you were. And the point of the matter was, if you took that thing, then you were not the enemy. If you took it, then you were the enemy. And a few years later, everything's been exposed. We all now know that what they told us was actually, the opposite. the ones who didn't take it were actually the ones who did better off, and the ones that did take it, they've actually ended up worse off. And so that was a test run for this great test. And this time of testing, the time of great temptation, you're going to need the Holy Spirit in order to survive and be able to resist and to say, no, I don't want that MOTB. They might, well, they will, they will come around in America, Babylon the Great. They will round people up into martial law camps. There will be beheadings. Some the scriptures tell you that some will be beheaded for this word. So you're gonna need you're gonna need one hell of a spirit on you in order to survive that time, and that's going to be the Holy Spirit. And it says here, if any man worship the beast and his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of the Most High. So you need that spirit to pass the test. You don't take the MOTB, you don't take the mark, the device under the skin, and you pass the test. You proved that you don't worship the beast system. And that's the great testing. Yes, you live in the beast system now at the minute. Yes, you have to pay taxes. Yes, you say to me you don't worship it. Everybody says, oh yeah, whatever, we don't worship it. The other people that do worship it, they look at us and say, well, what's the difference between me and you? Well, there will be a separation made. And this is talking about America, Babylon the Great. In verse 10, it says, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of the Most High, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And this is pretty much speaking of the lake of fire, America, Babylon the Great, not a place called hell. It says here, tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels. This is not a mythical place underground called hell. It's actually talking about America, the lake of fire, and that will be destroyed in World War III within 1 hour by nuclear ICBMs. And so, it's told here, if you take that, the scriptures, they're not messing around. When you read this, it says, it's basically saying anybody that worships the beast and receives the mark, shall drink of the wine of the wrath of the Most High. So it's clear cut. You take it and you're going to receive judgment. If you don't take it, you still have to be a member of the elect. This doesn't apply to all the other nations. Anybody in America that's of the other nations, you will taste judgment. In America, 2/3 of the Israelites will perish, and a lot of those will take the MOTB. They won't have the faith. They won't see any other way out. The government will tell them, look, you have to take this device under the skin, and that's the only way you're going to survive and be a part of the system, and they're going to go run into it. Those with the spirit on you to resist, things are going to come up against you to try and force you into it, and you're going to have to resist, and divine intervention will take place. This is the time of Jacob's trouble. So like I say, we can debate at the minute who worships the beast, who doesn't, but there's a test coming. It's the hour of temptation, the time of temptation. So we're heading to the MOTB real fast, and you're going to start to see these new presidents as they come in. We've got one now in the UK, you've got one coming in America. These are like the two powerful nations on the planet. I believe the French president has just quit. He's resigned or something. So we said he's not going to stand for the next. So you've got a change coming in over in France. So you've got all these things happening all at once. And like I say, you're going to start to see things become very draconian. So I'm going to leave it right there. I'll leave all the links in the description box or the comment board. I hope that was edifying. All praises to Yahweh B'Hashim Yahweh Shai for the wisdom and the knowledge. I hope that was edifying. Until next time. Shalom.